Rain swallowed sound in Cedar Ridge. By late afternoon, the town blurred into gray, the mountains and strip malls smeared behind a curtain of water. On the interstate, it felt less like driving and more like pushing a boat upstream. Ethan Cole tightened his grip on the steering wheel and leaned closer to the glass. The wipers swung on high, barely keeping up. Red brake lights stacked ahead of him in a slow, glittering river. He glanced at the dashboard clock. 5:12 p.m. He was late again. His phone propped in its holder lit up with a text from Lily's piano teacher. He did not have to open it to know what it said. Running a bit behind, everything is fine. He hit the call button while traffic sat still. "Ms. Carter, it is Ethan," I figured, she said. In the background, he heard a piano scale, bright and careful. "Let me guess." Freeway turned into a parking lot. "World's slowest parade," he said. "Lily doing okay?" "She is fine. We went over the new piece. You have at least 15 minutes before she starts staring at the door." "Thank you, I owe you." "You already owe me a couple," she laughed. "Just get here safe." The call ended. The cars lurched forward half a length and stopped again. The clock rolled to 5:15. He pictured Lily on the small bench by the studio window, backpack at her feet, pretending she did not care. She read the set of his shoulders, the pauses in his voice, the way he went quiet around certain dates on the calendar. Headlights smeared across wet asphalt. Rain drummed on the roof of the SUV. A traffic alert flashed on his phone. "Accident on I-5 ahead. All lanes blocked. Expect significant delays." The GPS map blinked, recalculated, drew a new line. Rerouting, the robotic voice said, "Take exit 112 toward Hollow Creek Road in 1 mile. Ethan frowned at the screen. Hollow Creek Road was a thin gray thread that peeled away from the interstate and vanished into the dark green block that marked the forest. He had heard the name, a shortcut teenagers bragged about, a place kids went to drink and scare each other with stories about fog and headlights and things that stepped out of the trees. Ahead, the red light stretched as far as he could see. "Fine," he muttered. "We will try it your way." He checked his mirrors, clicked the blinker on, and eased into the exit lane with a handful of other drivers who had decided they had seen enough of I-5. The ramp curved away from the interstate. The roar of freeway traffic faded into a softer hiss. Douglas firs rose on both sides, tall and black against the washed-out sky. The road narrowed to 2 slick lanes. The GPS told him to stay straight for 12 miles. Water pooled along the edges of the cracked asphalt. His tires hissed through it. A few mailboxes appeared and vanished at the mouths of gravel driveways. Every so often, a side road flashed by, marked by a sagging wooden sign. The town felt far away here. He exhaled and realized he had been clenching his jaw. His neck ached. He rolled his shoulders, tried to let the tension go. On the passenger seat, a reusable bag sagged open, a loaf of bread and a can of tomato soup, bumping together with each turn. He had promised Lily grilled cheese, something warm and easy after a day of emails. And did you do your homework? 4 years, and sometimes his hand still reached for an extra plate without thinking. 4 years, and there were mornings when he almost called out for Anna before the quiet reminded him. He blinked and fixed his eyes on the pavement. Rain streaked diagonally across the windshield, silver under the headlights. The wipers kept their weary beat. The curve ahead tightened, without warning. Ethan eased off the gas hand, steady on the wheel. The forest pressed close. His headlights carved a narrow tunnel through wet trunks and leaves. On the right, a rusted guardrail clung to the edge of a drop that fell into darkness. His fingers went white on the wheel as the road bent again. "Slow down," he told himself. "You are no good to her if you end up in a ditch." Static crackled on the radio. A news voice pushed through, talking about an investigation into a nursing home in Seattle. A few words floated up. Neglect, vulnerable residents, no cameras. Ethan reached out and clicked the radio off. Silence, thick with the hiss of rain on metal and glass, settled back around him. He rounded another bend, eyes following the double yellow line that gleamed under his headlights. For a second, the road ahead looked empty. Then he saw it. A shape on the shoulder hunched against the guardrail on the right. Small, dark, wrong. His first thought was a fallen sign, something blown loose in the storm. People dumped all kinds of things on back roads where no one had to look at them. He squinted through the wet glass. The wipers cleared another sheet of water. Metal, wheels, a narrow frame. A chair, not the backyard kind. A wheelchair. It sat just beyond the white line, tilted slightly toward the drop. The person in it was barely more than a bundle of soaked fabric hair plastered to a bowed head. For a long beat, Ethan did not move. The SUV crawled forward. The image hung in the bright cone of his headlights. Tires, handles, thin legs draped in what might have been a blanket, the relentless hammer of rain. There was someone in the chair. Ethan had already gone past when his foot slammed the brake. The seatbelt cut across his chest. The bag of groceries slid off the passenger seat and thumped onto the floor. The SUV fishtailed for a heartbeat on the wet pavement before the tires gripped again. He stared into the rearview mirror. The wheelchair was smaller in the reflection and half swallowed by the rain, but it was still there. A dark knot of metal and fabric crouched at the edge of the drop. His hand went to the gear shift and froze. People pulled scams out here. Fake breakdowns, a stranger on the road, someone hiding in the trees. He had read more than one claim file that started with a lonely highway and someone flagging down a car. The wipers scraped across the glass. In the mirror, the figure did not move. He imagined Lily sitting on that bench by the studio window, watching rain streak down the glass, wondering where he was. He heard his own voice in his head from 100 trainings and interviews. Trust your gut, but verify the story. Look at what does not fit. People did not sit in wheelchairs in the rain like that, not this far out with no houses in sight. He blew out a breath that shook more than he liked. Do not be that guy who drives past, he said under his breath. He shifted the SUV into reverse, checked the oncoming lane out of habit, even though there were no headlights anywhere, and backed up slowly until his beams caught the chair full on. The figure in it did not react. The wheels gleamed silver. The seat was slick with water. It felt like approaching a photograph. He slid the gear into park, flicked on the hazard lights, and grabbed his jacket from the back seat. The cold hit him the second he opened the door, a wall of wet air that stole the warmth from his skin. Rain slapped his face and soaked his hair in 2 steps. The road was slick under his boots. He had to lean into the wind to stay upright. "Hey," he called out. His voice went thin in the storm. "Hey, can you hear me?" No answer. He moved closer. The person in the chair was young, a woman he realized when he reached her. Wet blonde hair clung to her cheeks and neck. Her head hung forward, chin nearly to her chest, arms wrapped tight around her middle. For a terrible second, he thought she might already be gone. "Hey," he said again louder, "can you look at me?" Her shoulders jerked. A small sound tore out of her hoarse and raw. She lifted her head. Hazel eyes stared up at him wide and unfocused. Water ran in thin streams down her fists. Her lips were almost blue. Up close, he could feel the tremor in her. It traveled from the chair into his hands when he caught the armrest. Relief hit him so hard it almost buckled his knees. "Okay," he said, speaking more to keep her anchored than because he knew what to say. "You are here. I see you. My name is Ethan. I am going to get you out of the rain, all right." She swallowed, her throat working. It took her a few tries to get words out. "Please," she whispered. "Please do not leave me." Rain ran down inside his collar. He could not feel his fingers anymore. He crouched enough to meet her eyes. "I am not going anywhere," he said. "What is your name?" She opened her mouth, coughed, then forced a sound through chattering teeth. "Jenna," she said. "Jenna Brooks." "All right, Jenna," he said. "Can you feel your legs?" A flash of something that was not just cold flickered across her face. "No," she said. The word was flat with familiarity. "I am paralyzed. It is not from this. It is old." That answered one question and raised a dozen others, but the rain did not care about his curiosity. It hammered down around them, needling his face, soaking his jeans. "How long have you been out here?" "I do not know." Her teeth clacked together. "Hours. Since it was still light, I think." He looked at her lap. A thin blanket tangled around her legs. It was so wet it clung like a second skin. Her shoes were gone, bare feet pale under the dim glow from his headlights. The guardrail beside her was streaked with rust. Beyond it, the land dropped into a narrow gully full of shadow and running water. One good shove of the chair would have been enough. He pushed the thought away. "Okay," he repeated. "Okay, I am going to lift you into my car. You are going to get warm. Can you put your arms around my neck?" She hesitated just for a second, as if unsure whether she could trust her hands. Then her fingers reached for him, cold and clumsy, catching in the fabric of his jacket. He slid an arm under her knees and one around her back. She was lighter than he expected, all bone and shiver. The metal parts of the chair scraped his knuckles as he lifted. She gasped and grabbed him harder, breath hot against his neck in contrast to the cold rain. "Got you," he said. The walk back to the SUV felt longer than it should have. His boots slipped on the slick shoulder. Water ran down his back. Jenna's hair brushed his jaw, dripping onto his already soaked shirt. He nudged the passenger door open with his hip and eased her onto the seat, turning her so her legs stretched out in front of her. She clutched at the door handle until he guided her hand to the armrest. "I will be right back," he said. "I am going to grab your chair." Her eyes jumped to his. "You are coming back." "I said I would not leave you," he said. Something in her shoulders relaxed half an inch. He closed the door, shutting her inside the relative warmth of the SUV, and turned back into the rain. The wheelchair was heavier when he tried to fold it. The joints protested from grit and weather. His fingers fumbled over levers and cold metal. He managed to collapse it enough to wrestle it into the cargo area. By the time he climbed into the driver's seat, his jacket was a lost cause. Water ran off the hem onto the floor mat. Inside the car, the air was already warming. The heater blew hard. Jenna sat very still, eyes closed, both hands gripping the edges of the seat as if the world might tilt. He cranked the temperature higher and grabbed the spare hoodie from the back. It still smelled faintly of detergent and his garage. "Here," he said, holding it out. "Can you get this on?" She blinked at it, as if it were something unfamiliar. Then she nodded. Her hands shook so badly, it took 2 tries to hook them through the sleeves. He looked away to give her privacy, staring at the rain on the windshield, the red pulse of his hazard lights reflecting off wet asphalt. He reached into the center console and pulled out the stainless steel travel mug he had filled that morning and never touched. "It is just coffee," he said. "Not great coffee, but it is hot." She wrapped her fingers around the mug. The metal clicked against her teeth when she took a careful sip. Color crept back into her face, faint but real. He pulled his phone from the dashboard mount and hit the 3-digit number on reflex. A thumb width from the call button, Jenna's hand shot out and grabbed his wrist. "No," she said. Her voice was no longer a whisper. It had edges now sharp with something like panic. "You need a hospital," he said. "You have been in the rain for hours. You could be hypothermic. They need to check your heart, your lungs, all of it." "I know what hypothermia feels like." Her fingers tightened. "I have been in and out of hospitals for 8 years. Please, do not take me there. They will look for me there." "Who will?" She looked straight at him for the first time since he found her. The fear he had seen on the side of the road was still there, but underneath it he caught something older, hurt ground down into bone. "My stepmother," she said, "and her son. Victoria and Chase Hale. They left me out there." The words did not fit with the quiet of the car. They landed heavy and wrong between the cup holders and the dashboard. He stared at her. For a second, with the heater blowing and the rain pounding on the roof, he wondered if he had misheard. "Left me. Not broke down, not wandered off." "Why would they do that?" he asked. She let out a sound that was almost a laugh and almost a sob. "You would not believe me," she said. "No one will." He thought of the radio voice talking about investigations, about no cameras and vulnerable people. He thought of the way she had looked on the side of the road alone in that chair, with the guardrail at her back and nothing but air past it. "Try me," he said quietly. She shook her head once as if arguing with herself. "I cannot go to a hospital," she said. "If they find out I am alive, they will finish it. Please." The word hung there, small and tight and desperate. He shut his eyes for a moment, pressing his thumb and forefinger against the bridge of his nose. The decision felt like stepping off a curb in the dark and trusting the ground to be there. "All right," he said. "No hospital, not yet." She exhaled in a shudder that sounded like something loosening inside her chest. "I am taking you to my house," he said. "It is not far. My neighbor is a nurse. We will get you warm and checked out. Then you can tell me what happened." "You do not know me," she said. "I know enough," he said. "You were sitting in a wheelchair in a storm on Hollow Creek Road. Someone put you there." He tapped his phone and called. Ms. Carter asked her to drop Lily at the house and promised to explain. Then he called Rosa, told her he was bringing someone over who needed a nurse, and heard the sharp concern in her intake of breath. He set the phone aside, put the SUV into gear, and eased back onto the road. The hazard lights clicked off. Headlights found the yellow line again. In the passenger seat, Jenna sat wrapped in his oversized hoodie, hands cupped around the travel mug, eyes fixed on the blurred world outside. The forest slid by a wet smear of trunks and shadow. The wipers kept time, clearing the glass, then letting the rain reclaim it. Ethan kept one eye on the road and one on the pale profile beside him. He felt the shape of a new weight settling across his shoulders, unfamiliar and heavy, but it did not feel wrong. Cedar Ridge lights appeared ahead through the rain, soft and distant, as the SUV rolled off Hollow Creek Road and back toward town. By the time Ethan turned onto his street, the rain had settled into a steady curtain, less violent, but no less constant. The houses in Cedar Ridge sat low and quiet under it, porch lights glowing like small ships in fog. He pulled into his driveway and killed the engine. For a moment, he just sat there listening to the tick of cooling metal and the faint hum of the heater. "You live here?" Jenna asked. Her voice was a little stronger now. The hoodie was zipped up to her chin. Damp strands of hair curled against her cheeks. "Yeah," he said. "Home sweet rental." The porch light flicked on next door before he even opened his door. Rosa Delgado stepped out onto her own porch in a bright yellow raincoat, slipping an umbrella open with the ease of someone who had lived through a lot of storms. "You took your time, Cole," she called out. "Bring her in before she turns into an icicle." There was no surprise in her voice, just brisk concern. Ethan looked at Jenna, her fingers tightened around the now empty travel mug. "You ready?" he asked. She nodded. He got out, hurried around to the passenger side, and opened her door. Rain reached in immediately. The cold air made Jenna flinch. "I will carry you inside," he said. "Ramp is only halfway built in my head." A ghost of a smile tugged at her mouth. "Okay," she said. He lifted her again, careful of her legs, and felt her arms circle his neck. She smelled faintly of rain and coffee and something sharp from the road, like wet metal. Rosa was already coming down the steps by the time he reached the porch. "Oh, honey," she said when she saw Jenna's face. "You poor thing." She held the umbrella low over them, while Ethan eased Jenna through the doorway. Inside the house felt almost too warm after the rain. The entryway was small, a rack of shoes lined up by habit. A few coats hung on the hooks, one of them still Anna's. Ethan did not look at it. The living room opened just beyond with a sagging couch, a scuffed coffee table, and a piano tucked against one wall. Lily's sheet music lay open on the stand notes, marching in neat rows across the page. Ethan set Jenna gently on the couch. The cushions dipped under her slight weight. "Feet up," Rosa said, already shucking off her raincoat. "Blanket, Ethan." He grabbed the throw from the back of the couch and draped it over Jenna's legs. Rosa kneeled beside the coffee table and took Jenna's wrist between her fingers. "Name," Rosa asked, eyes on her watch. "Didn't be the maybe stare watch it be is you listism bitch samada." "Jenna Brooks," she said. "Okay, Jenna. I am Rosa. I poke and ask too many questions, but I am retired, so I do it for free." She counted softly under her breath, took Jenna's other hand, then leaned over to press the back of her fingers to Jenna's forehead. "Pulse is fast, but not crazy," Rosa said. "She is chilled, but not gone. Good thing you found her when you did." Jenna's gaze drifted to Ethan, then back to Rosa. "I was starting to think no one would," she said. Rosa's attention sharpened. "Were you in a crash?" she asked. "Any hits to the head?" "No crash," Jenna said. "They left me there." Rosa's brows knit together, but she let it go for the moment, sliding a small flashlight from her pocket and holding it up. "Look at me. Follow the light." Jenna did as instructed. Ethan stood a few feet away, suddenly unsure where to put his hands. He used them to pick up the abandoned grocery bag instead, carrying it to the kitchen and setting it on the counter. The normalcy of bread and soup felt strange. He could hear Rosa quizzing Jenna in the other room. Any numbness different from usual? Any chest pain? Any nausea? Years of clinic questions condensed into a minute. When he came back, Rosa was tucking the blanket tighter around Jenna's legs. "She needs dry clothes and something hot in her," Rosa said. "Then rest. You call me if she starts shivering again, or if she cannot stay awake." "I am right here," Jenna said, a hint of dry humor returning. "I can hear you." "Good," Rosa said. "Means you are still with us." The front door opened and shut again, bringing in a gust of damp air and the sound of Lily's voice. "Dad." "In here," Ethan called. Lily appeared in the doorway in her raincoat backpack, slung over one shoulder, hair curled and frizz from the weather. She stopped short when she saw Jenna on the couch. Her eyes flicked to her father, then back to the stranger in his hoodie. "Oh," she said. Ethan stepped forward. "This is Jenna," he said. "She needed help." He watched Lily's face, the way she scanned Jenna's legs under the blanket, the unfamiliar wheelchair folded and leaning by the door. "Hi," Lily said. "Hi," Jenna replied. They looked at each other for a beat that felt longer than it was. "Are you okay?" Lily asked. Not, "What happened?" or "Why is she here?" just that. Jenna's throat moved. "I am getting there," she said. Lily nodded once as if this satisfied something important. "She can have the guest room," Lily said to Ethan, as if the decision was hers to make. "The one downstairs. The blue one." Ethan felt something ease in his chest that he had not realized was locked. "Yeah," he said. "That is what I was thinking." Rosa straightened and brushed her hands on her jeans. "I am going to let you two settle," she said. "I will bring over some tea and a thermometer in a bit. Jenna, if you feel weird, you yell loud. I live right there." "I will," Jenna said. Rosa gave Ethan a look, on her way out, the kind that said they would have a longer conversation later. The door closed behind her, muting the rain again. Ethan turned back to Jenna. "I have some of my late wife's clothes," he said. The words came out careful. "If you are okay with that, there are pants and shirts that might fit, at least until we can get you your own things." Jenna's fingers plucked at the hem of the hoodie. "I do not have much," she said quietly. "Most of my stuff is at my dad's house." She did not say our, he noticed. Not my parents, not my family's, my dad's. "I will grab what I have," he said. "Lily, "Can you get some towels from the bathroom?" Lily nodded and disappeared down the hall. He found the box of folded clothes in the back of his closet, shirts soft from wear, sweatpants, a pair of leggings, things he had not been able to look at as anything but relics for years. He carried a small stack back to the living room. Jenna took them with a quiet thank you. "Bathroom is right there," he said, nodding toward the short hallway. "There is a grab bar by the sink. Floor gets slippery, so take your time." She studied his face, as if trying to decide whether he meant it when he said, "Take your time." Then she nodded. "Could you bring my chair closer?" she asked, "if you do not mind." He unfolded the wheelchair and rolled it over until it bumped gently against the couch. "I will give you some space," he said. He stepped into the kitchen while Jenna worked her way into the chair. He could hear the faint clink of metal and fabric, the small sounds of effort. He poured water into a pot, set it on the stove, and lit the burner. Steam started to rise by the time Jenna reappeared. The hoodie had been replaced by a soft gray shirt. Her hair was still damp, but no longer dripping. The sweatpants were a little long, bunching at her ankles. "Better?" he asked. "A little," she said. "I smell like someone else's laundry, but it is dry. I will take it." She maneuvered the chair with practiced hands, turning it so she could see the piano and the rain streaking down the window beyond it. "Wow," she said softly. "What?" "Nothing. It just feels like a house. In a good way." He opened a cupboard, pulled down mugs, and reached for the tea Rosa kept stocked in his kitchen, as if it were her own. "Jenna," he said, "you told me your stepmother and her son left you out there. What about your father?" Her face shifted at the word. Something in it closed, then opened again. "He is gone," she said. 3 months now." "I am sorry," Ethan said. She gave a quick nod, not quite trusting her voice yet. "He was the one who stayed," she said after a moment. "Before the chair. After it. All of it." Her gaze drifted to a spot on the wall, not really seeing it. When she spoke again, her voice slipped a little, as if it had found an old track. "I was 15, she said. "Summer. My dad took me to this ranch out by Spokane. I had been saving for riding lessons for months. Stupid, right?" "It does not sound stupid," he said. She let out a short breath. "They put me on this bay mare," she said. "Smooth, lazy, safe. We did circles in the arena over little poles. Then the instructor set up a tiny jump, like kid-sized. I remember thinking it would feel like flying." The kettle on the stove started to whisper. Ethan turned the heat down without taking his eyes off her. "We went over it once," Jenna said. "It was fine. Second time something spooked her. A noise, a shadow, I do not know. She twisted midair. I slipped. I remember the sky flipping, the ground coming at me sideways. Then there was this crack like a branch snapping, but inside my body. Her hand moved to the small of her back, without thinking, fingers pressing where the scar would be. I could not feel my legs," she said. "I remember telling the EMT that over and over, like maybe I had just forgotten them somewhere, and they could bring them back." Ethan leaned against the counter, arms crossed loosely, letting her talk. "My dad rode in the ambulance with me," she said. "Held my hand the whole way. When they told him in the hospital, he cried once. In the hallway. I heard him. Then he came in and said we would figure it out." She blinked, pulling herself back from the memory. Her eyes were bright but dry. "He meant it," she said. "He learned how to do transfers, how to talk to insurance, how to fight with doctors who saw me as a problem instead of a person. He built ramps in the house himself because he did not trust anyone else to do it right." The way she said house had warmth in it now. "Just the two of you?" Ethan asked. "For a while, yeah," she said. "He had friends I had online school and physical therapy, and we made it work. It was not perfect. Sometimes we got on each other's nerves. Sometimes I hated every grab bar in the house, but he never made me feel like I ruined his life." The kettle had started to rattle again. Ethan turned off the burner and poured water over the waiting tea bags. "Something changed later," he said. She nodded, jaw tightening. "He got lonely," she said. "At least that is what he told me. Said I would go off to college one day, get my own place, and he would be rattling around that big house by himself. He wanted someone to share it with." She curled her fingers around the arms of the chair, a mirror of how she had held the travel mug in the car. "That is when Victoria showed up," she said. Ethan set a mug of tea on the coffee table in front of Jenna and took the chair opposite her. The rain pressed lightly at the windows, now a softer tapping. Lily had retreated to her room with the kind of quiet curiosity that promised more questions later. Jenna watched the steam curl up from the mug. "He met her at a fundraiser," she said. "One of those charity galas with fairy lights and lukewarm chicken. Some foundation for adaptive sports. Irony, right?" Her mouth twisted as if she could taste how that sounded. "She was on the board," Jenna went on. "Victoria Hale, interior designer. Her photos were all over local magazines. This perfect life. White couches, glass tables, no clutter anywhere. What did you think of her? Ethan asked. At first, Jenna shrugged one shoulder. She was nice to me. That was all it took to confuse me back then. She lifted the mug and let the heat soak into her fingers before taking a sip. She came over for dinner, Jenna said. The first time she brought this ridiculous bouquet that barely fit through the door. Called me sweetheart, like she had known me forever. Asked about my chair and my routines like she cared. Said she had always admired girls who did not let anything stop them. The way Jenna said admired made it sound like something to be handled with tongs. In the kitchen, she told my dad the house felt cold, Jenna said. Not temperature cold. She meant the walls. Next week, she had samples spread out on the dining table. Paint swatches, fabric new layout ideas. She talked about flow, about making space for my chair, about widening doorways. That sounds useful, Ethan said. It was on paper, Jenna said. The first changes helped. She had good taste. My dad glowed when she walked into a room and said it looked better. She rolled the mug between her palms. 6 months later, they were engaged, she said. He asked what I thought. I told him if he was happy, I was happy. I meant it. He had given up a lot for me. I did not want to be the reason he stayed alone forever. Her gaze shifted to a framed photo on Ethan's wall. Lily at a park mid-laugh, hair blowing across her face. He did not know which of them she was really seeing. Did things change after they got married? He asked. Not at first, Jenna said. She moved in, brought her furniture, her candles that made the whole house smell like a spa. She switched the art on the walls, put some of my posters in the garage for safekeeping. She sighed, not loudly. Then Chase showed up, she said. Her son Ethan said. Yeah, Jenna replied. He was in college the first year, so we mostly saw him on breaks. He was charming in that way some people get when life has never told them no. He brought me coffee from fancy places, sat on the arm of the couch, and asked about my physical therapy like it was a talk show segment. Did you like him? Ethan asked. I wanted to, Jenna said. My dad liked him. Victoria beamed every time they were in the same room. If I noticed the way his eyes slid over my chair like it was a stain, I pretended I did not. She took another sip of tea, then set the mug down with care. The little comment started small, she said. He would joke about how the insurance company must hate us, or how the medical bills stacked higher than my textbooks. Victoria laughed just a touch late and said he was only teasing. Her fingers pinched at a loose thread on the blanket over her legs. Once I rolled into the kitchen and they did not hear me, Jenna said. She was at the counter flipping through a catalog. He was leaning against the fridge. I heard her say, your stepfather works himself into the ground, and all of it goes into keeping that girl afloat. Jenna's jaw tightened around the word girl. What did you do? Ethan asked. I backed up, she said, quietly. I pretend I had not heard. Later, when she noticed me, she put a hand on my shoulder and told me she was proud of how independent I was. Outside, a car drove by its tires, hissing on wet pavement. The world kept moving on the other side of the window. My dad never heard that side, Jenna said. With him around, she was patient, she was kind. She showed up to my doctor appointments, asked good questions, brought snacks. Ethan could picture it, the dual performance, the way some people split themselves depending on the audience. Then he had the stroke, Jenna said. The word landed like another kind of crack. He was in his office, she said. I heard the chair hit the floor. When I got there, he was on the carpet with one side of his face slack. He was trying to talk, but the words did not make sense. His eyes were clear. That was the worst part. He knew exactly what was happening. Her fingers gripped the armrest. I called 911, she said. Victoria stood in the doorway with her phone in her hand, not moving like it was a movie, and she was not sure what scene this was. In the ambulance, he squeezed my hand once, hard as he could, then nothing. Ethan did not interrupt. She looked like stopping would hurt more than keeping going. At the hospital, they put him on a ventilator, she said. Monitors everywhere. Nurses came in and out. A doctor pulled us aside and explained about clots and swelling and words like irreversible. Her gaze had gone far away into echoes of fluorescent light and antiseptic. I wheeled into the bathroom and threw up, she said. When I came out, I heard Chase in the hallway. He was asking a nurse how much long-term care cost. Not for my dad, for me. His exact words were, so if someone needed a place like a facility, what is the cheapest option in the state? She blinked, dragging herself back to the living room. I told myself I was hearing it wrong, she said. That grief makes everyone say strange things. Later, when my dad died, I decided none of it mattered anyway. He was gone. That was the only thing I could see. Ethan cleared his throat. Did he have a will, he asked. Of course, Jenna said. He was that kind of person. Organized. Lists for everything. I thought I knew what it said. House to Victoria, trust fund for me, some donations to charities, nothing dramatic. She gave a short, humorless laugh. I was wrong, she said. He had updated it about 6 months before he died. Never told me. Never told her, I guess. We went to the lawyer's office 2 days after the funeral. I still had the hospital bracelet on my wrist. Victoria wore black like she was in a magazine spread. Chase sat there scrolling his phone under the table. Her fingers traced an invisible pattern on the blanket. The lawyer read through the formal stuff first, Jenna said. Name, sound, mind, all that. Then he got to the part about the house. He left it to me. Investments accounts the company shares. All to me, with specific instructions for my care in detail. Victoria and Chase each got $75,000. That was it. Ethan watched her face, the way her mouth flattened at the memory. Not of the money, but of their reaction. Victoria smiled, Jenna said. A tiny twitch. Then her jaw got tight. Her nails carved little half-moons into the arm of the chair. She said she was happy for me. Her voice sounded like glass. And Chase, Ethan asked. He said, "Wow, that is generous," Jenna replied. Then he asked the lawyer how soon funds could be accessed, like he was ordering remodeling work, not burying my father. She rubbed her thumb against the edge of the blanket. I wanted to give them more, she said softly. I actually thought about it. I thought maybe if we split things differently, it would feel less strange. My dad meant well, but I did not want to live in a house dripping with resentment. What stopped you? Ethan asked. She looked at him steadily. They did, she said. She took a breath. For a week they acted normal, she said. Victoria made casseroles people brought us. Chase offered to drive me to therapy. It was all very, we are a family, we will get through this. The way she said family made the word feel fragile. Then Victoria suggested a trip, Jenna said. Just the 3 of us. She said the house felt heavy, that we should go somewhere quiet to grieve together. A spa lodge up in the Cascades. Massages, meditation, mountain air. It sounded nice, Ethan said. It did, Jenna said. I wanted to believe it was real. I wanted to believe they were trying. My dad had loved them. I thought the least I could do was meet them halfway. She took another sip of tea. It had gone lukewarm, but she drank it anyway. We loaded up the SUV that morning, she said. It was foggy, but not like this. Just enough to make the trees look pretty. Victoria packed my meds, my chair, everything. She fussed over a scarf around my neck. Chase made a playlist and joked about us becoming a road trip family. They put my chair in the back and sat me in the front passenger seat. We got on the freeway just like heading to Seattle. After a while, I realized we were not following the signs she had shown me on the brochure. No exit for the lodge, no signs for the town she kept mentioning. She frowned slightly, remembering the turns. I asked, she said. Victoria smiled and said there was a more scenic route. Chase turned up the music. They kept saying it would be worth it. She folded her hands together, fingers nodding. Then we left the freeway, she said. Onto a road I did not recognize. The trees got thicker. The fog dropped lower. The GPS on the dash kept recalculating. At some point, I stopped seeing houses. Ethan knew which road she meant before she named it. Hollow Creek Road, he said. She nodded. We had only been on it a little while when Chase said the engine sounded off, Jenna said. He pulled onto the shoulder. Victoria made a show of worrying. Is it safe? Should we call for help? What if the car dies out here? Her voice went quiet. She got out and opened my door, Jenna said. Said the air smelled amazing, that I should feel it. She and Chase got my chair from the back like it was any other rest stop. They set it up. They lifted me into it. The room felt smaller. The rain on the windows, the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the distant sound of Lily moving in her room, all of it tucked around Jenna's words. They wheeled me to the edge of the road, she said, right by the guardrail. She pointed at the trees at the valley, said something about how peaceful it was. Chase made a joke about me getting the best view. Her mouth trembled, then steadied. I remember thinking the air did smell clean, she said. Wet pine, rain on dirt. I was about to say it when Victoria let go of the chair. She met Ethan's eyes now. I heard the car doors close, she said. I heard the engine turn over. For a second I thought they were going to park somewhere else, that they had to move closer to look under the hood or something. Her fingers dug into the blanket. I called out, she said. My voice sounded small. I said, "Wait, you forgot me." Chase looked in the rearview mirror. Our eyes met. I saw him see me, really see me. Then he shifted his gaze back to the road. She swallowed. The car rolled forward, she said. The taillights got smaller. I kept calling. They did not even speed up. They just kept going until the red lights were gone. She let out a breath she had probably been holding since the side of that road. I sat there, she said. Rain started light at first, then hard. Trucks went by sometimes, a couple of cars, nobody pulled over. Silence settled between them, thick as the fog on Hollow Creek Road. Ethan felt a slow burn work its way into his chest. It sat there heavy and hot. They did not panic, he said. They did not get lost. They did not leave you by accident. She shook her head. They knew exactly what they were doing, she said. For a while, neither of them spoke. The house was quiet except for the rain and the hum of the refrigerator. The story sat between them like a third presence. Ethan's hands were locked together so tightly his knuckles ached. He forced them to unclasp, set his palms flat on his knees. How long were you there? He asked. On the road before I found you. Jenna let out a breath. I lost track, she said. My phone was in my bag in the back of the car. I watched the light change. The fog lifted a little, then the sky went darker again. I counted trucks. I made up numbers. I stopped when my teeth started shaking too hard. She bit the inside of her cheek. At one point I tried to yell at every set of headlights, she said. I figured if someone saw a crazy girl in a wheelchair screaming on a back road, they would stop. But with the rain and the curve, by the time I heard engines, they were already past me. She glanced toward the window, as if she could see Hollow Creek Road through the glass. I kept thinking maybe they would come back, she said. That they would say it was a test or a joke or something I could eventually laugh about. Every time I heard tires slow, I got ready. I told myself not to cry in front of them. Her mouth pulled tight. They never came back, she said. You did. Ethan stared at his hands for a moment. His chest felt full, not in a good way. Jenna, he said, did they say anything that sounded like a plan before this trip? Talk about what life would be like without you in the house, that kind of thing. She gave a short, bitter half-smile. Nothing that obvious, she said. More like hints. Victoria would say she wished my dad had not tied up so much money in care when he could have traveled. Chase liked to joke that with my meds and equipment, we might as well put a cash shredder in the living room. He thought of the quiet road, the guardrail, the way the chair had been angled toward the drop. It was perfect for them, he said. Remote, no cameras, storm rolling in to wash away tire tracks. Big drop-off for accidents. She nodded slowly. They were smart, she said. They knew the timing. They knew the weather. They knew I could not walk anywhere even if I wanted to. Do they know you are alive? Ethan asked. Not unless someone called them from the hospital. I am not in, she said. If their plan was to wait a day and then act shocked, when the police could not find me, they are probably doing that right now. The bare bulb over the sink buzzed faintly. It sounded too loud. Ethan stood and crossed to the window. The street was a shiny smear of porch lights reflected in the wet pavement. Rosa's house glowed warm next door. You need to report this, he said. I did, Jenna said. Sort of. When the storm started, I screamed until my voice broke. That is about as much reporting as you can do to trees. He turned back. I mean, officially, he said. With the police. If they have already filed some story, you have to tell your side. Her shoulders hunched. They will not believe me, she said. Who is going to look at Victoria Hale, patron saint of design magazines, and her golden boy, and think attempted murder instead of tragic misunderstanding? He thought of uniforms of clipped pens scratching on forms of skeptical faces on the other side of a desk. Maybe not right away, he said, but the longer you wait, the harder it gets to untangle whatever story they are spinning. She stared at the piano keys unplayed and silent. What if they say I wanted to disappear? She asked. They could. They could talk about depression, about grief, about too many hospital stays. They could say I rolled away from them at some rest stop, and they have no idea what happened. Ethan knew exactly how such a file would read. He had seen enough in his old job. Person with a long medical history, family with a polished surface, no witnesses, no video, a road with nothing but trees. You are right that it will not be easy, he said. You are wrong about us having nothing. We have your word, and mine, Jenna said. Their word, and their tears. Guess which one gets better lighting? Ethan's jaw tightened. I used to investigate claims for an insurance company, he said. People lied to me for a living. I learned how to pull apart stories, check times, follow money. They messed up somewhere. They always do. If we go now, I can at least hear what they have said. She looked up at him, studying his face like it was another piece of evidence. You really think you can prove it? She asked. I think I can see where the seams are, he said. I cannot promise anything beyond that. But I can promise I will not let their story be the only one on file. Her fingers twisted together, then slowly relaxed. Okay, she said. We go. Tomorrow. I do not have the energy to roll into a police station tonight. Tomorrow, he agreed. Rosa knocked on the doorframe lightly and stepped back into the room, a tray in her hands. I heard voices getting louder, she said. Figured either you needed tea or I needed to call someone. She set the tray down. A teapot, sliced fruit, a digital thermometer. How is our girl? She asked. Stable for now, Ethan said. We are going to the police in the morning. Rosa's eyes sharpened. She did not ask why. She had heard enough in the hallway, probably. Good, she said simply. Jenna, open your mouth. Jenna let Rosa take her temperature. The little device beeped and spit out numbers. 98 point something, Rosa said. You are warming up. Drink the tea. Try to sleep. Ethan, do not let her talk in circles all night. She needs rest more than your questions. I am right here, you know, Jenna said, a hint of a smile touching her mouth. Rosa smiled back. Good, she said. That makes 3 of us. When Rosa left the house, fell quiet again. Lily came out long enough to get a glass of water and kiss her father's cheek on the way past. She can have my old stuffed bear if she wants, Lily murmured too low for Jenna to hear. The one from the hospital. It helped. Ethan's throat tightened. We will see, he said. Thank you, kiddo. Later, after he showed Jenna the guest room, helped move what she needed within reach, and made sure there were extra blankets and a lamp by the bed, he stood in the doorway for a second. She sat in the wheelchair beside the bed, fingers tracing the stitching on the comforter. The room was small, painted a faded blue. It had been an office once, then a guest room. Anna's handwriting still labeled a box in the closet. If you need anything, my room is at the end of the hall, he said. Bathroom is right there. There is a nightlight in the outlet, so you do not have to fumble in the dark. He realized how that sounded talking to someone who could not stand even if the power went out, and winced internally. Jenna did not flinch. Thank you, she said, for all of this. He nodded, because any words he had felt clumsy. Sleep came in shallow, broken pieces that night. He kept waking to noises that turned out to be nothing. The heater kicking on, the refrigerator cycling, the rain easing. At some point he got up and padded barefoot down the hall, stopping outside the guest room. Light leaked around the edges of the door. He heard a faint sound like someone talking under their breath. He knocked once. Yeah, Jenna said. He opened the door a crack. She was awake, propped against the headboard, now chair parked nearby. One of Lily's old stuffed animals sat on the nightstand, its fur worn in patches. Can you not sleep? He asked. She shook her head. Every time I close my eyes, I am back on that road, she said. The sound of the rain, the lights going past. It is louder in the dark. He leaned against the frame. I could make more tea, he offered. She smiled faintly. Tea is not going to erase a 4-hour loop, she said, but I appreciate the thought. He hesitated. Tomorrow will be a lot, he said. If you want to change your mind about going, I will still call someone, but it might be a different conversation. Her expression sharpened. I am not changing my mind, she said. They already took almost everything. I am not handing them my voice too. He nodded once. Then we go, he said. The next morning dawned gray and low, but the rain had broken. The asphalt shone with what was left of it. Mist hung between the trees like breath. They ate a quiet breakfast. Toast, eggs, coffee. Lily watched Jenna spread jam with steady hands. The girl's eyes were full of questions she had not yet asked. What is the police station like? Jenna asked as Ethan rinsed dishes in the sink. Small, he said. Fluorescent lights, plastic chairs, coffee that tastes like cardboard. We will not be there for that. He dried his hands and grabbed the keys from the hook by the door. They clicked together, that familiar jangle he associated with work appointments, obligations. Today they sounded like something else. He helped Jenna down the small front step, lifting the chair over the lip of the threshold. The air was cool and damp, smelling of wet earth and distant pine. Rosa watched from her porch, arms folded, giving him a firm nod. The drive to the station took 10 minutes. A brick building with a flag out front, a few patrol cars parked along the side, a motor pool full of faded paint and mud splatter. Inside, the air smelled of paper coffee and the faint tang of disinfectant. A young officer sat behind the front desk typing. He looked up when the door opened and took in Jenna's chair, Ethan's face the way they moved with purpose. Can I help you? He asked. Yes, Ethan said. We are here to talk about a missing person report. The officer's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Name, he asked. Jenna Brooks, she said. His eyes flicked to her, then back to the screen. He typed, frowned slightly, then looked up again. There is already an active report under that name, he said. Filed yesterday afternoon by your stepmother, I think. She and your stepbrother have been calling for updates. They said you disappeared at a rest stop off the freeway. Jenna's mouth curved in a tight, humorless line. I did not disappear, she said. They abandoned me on Hollow Creek Road. The officer blinked. Okay, he said slowly. Why do you not start from the beginning? Ms. Brooks, and tell me exactly what happened. The officer's name tag read Harris. He clicked something on his screen, then gestured toward a row of plastic chairs near the wall. Have a seat, he said. I will grab an incident form and someone from investigations. Jenna wheeled herself to the end of the row, near a faded bulletin board, covered in community flyers. Ethan took the chair beside her. The fluorescent lights hummed. Somewhere deeper in the building a phone rang, stopped, rang again. A television mounted in the corner played a local news channel with the sound low. A headline scrolled across the bottom. Missing Cedar Ridge woman family pleads for help. It took a second for the image to register. Then Victoria's face filled the screen. Her eyes were red mascara smudged in a way that looked almost artful. Chase stood beside her, jaw clenched, one arm around her shoulders. If anyone has seen our Jenna, Victoria said, her voice trembling just enough. She has been through so much already. We are just begging for her safe return. B-roll showed a photo of Jenna in a sunny backyard chair, angled under a tree, a blanket over her legs. She was laughing at something out of frame. Ethan felt Jenna go still beside him, as if her spine had turned to stone. Officer Harris glanced at the TV, then at Jenna, then back. His mouth tightened. I will be right back, he said. He disappeared through a door marked Staff Only. Jenna stared at the screen until the segment flipped to weather. Her hands had disappeared into her sleeves. When she spoke, her voice sounded scraped. They got my good side, she said. Ethan turned the chair slightly so she faced away from the TV. She did not resist. You do not have to watch that, he said. I should, she replied. They are selling a story with my face on it. Harris returned with a clipboard, and another officer, this one older, with a coffee stain on his tie and deep lines around his eyes. His name tag read Langley. Ms. Brooks Langley said, pulling a chair across from them. I am Sergeant Langley. Officer Harris tells me you are the subject of an active missing person report. Jenna lifted her chin. I guess I am not missing anymore, she said. Langley's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. Why do you not tell me what happened, he said. From when you left home. So she did. She told him about the lodge brochure, the promises of a trip, the shift in the route, the fog, the turnoff. She described Hollow Creek Road, the way the trees pressed in, the way Victoria's hand had rested on the back of her chair when they brought her to the guardrail. The words came out flatter than they had in Ethan's living room, but they were precise. Langley listened without interrupting, pen scratching across his notebook. Harris typed quietly at the desk. And you are saying your stepmother and her son drove away intentionally, Langley said when she finished, knowing you could not move on your own. Yes, Jenna said. They knew. Did they threaten you at any point on the trip, he asked? Say anything that could be interpreted as wanting to hurt you? No, she said, not directly. They were not that stupid. You mentioned your father's will, Langley said, that you inherited his estate. How recently was that? The reading was about 3 weeks ago, she said. He died shortly before that. Ethan watched Langley's hand. The sergeant underlined something on the pad. You understand? I have to ask this, Langley said slowly. Have you had any thoughts about harming yourself since your father passed? Jenna's jaw clenched. You think I rolled myself out into the woods on a road I cannot even drive to, she said, with my imaginary legs. That is not what I said, Langley replied. I am trying to get a complete picture. I have been in therapy since I was 15, Jenna said. I know what suicidal ideation sounds like. This was not that. The words dropped between them sharper than anything else in the room. Ethan leaned forward. You have a missing person report that says she walked away from a rest stop on the freeway, he said, keeping his tone even. I found her in a wheelchair on Hollow Creek Road. That is not a small discrepancy. Langley looked at him. You are Mr. Cole, he said, the one who brought her in. Yes, Ethan said. I used to do investigative work for Northway Mutual. Fraud, staged accidents, things like that. I know how stories get shaped when people panic. And you think this is deliberate? Langley asked. I think you have two different scenes, Ethan said. One that exists on paper and one that exists on a rural road. The one on paper makes them look desperate and sympathetic. The one on the road looks a lot like attempted murder. Harris shifted behind the desk as if uneasy with the phrase. Langley closed his notebook. Here is where we are, he said. We have their statement already. They say they stopped at a rest area on the interstate, that Ms. Brooks was upset that she asked for some time alone. They say when they came back from the restroom, she was gone. They searched for her, then called us. We have video of them at that rest area. We have them on local news asking for help. They are good at this, Jenna said quietly. We also have you sitting in front of me, Langley said. Alive, with a very different account. He rubbed a hand over his face, as if trying to smooth away the fatigue there. I am not saying I do not believe you, he said. I am saying proving what you describe is extremely hard. That road does not have cameras. The storm washed away whatever tire tracks there might have been. There are no other witnesses as far as we know. So, what happens? Jenna asked. You write it down and file it next to their version and wait to see which one you like better. I will add your statement to the case, Langley said. We will open an investigation into possible abuse. I will be honest with you. Without physical evidence, this becomes a matter of competing narratives. Jenna's fingers tightened on the arms of her chair. Her knuckles went white. So they get to keep crying on TV, she said, and I get to look like the crazy disabled girl trying to keep her inheritance. Langley did not argue. I would like you to speak with a victim advocate, he said instead. Not because I do not believe you, but because navigating something like this is rough. I have been navigating rough for 8 years, Jenna said. He held her gaze for a moment, then nodded as if conceding a point. Do you feel safe where you are staying now? He asked. Yes, she said without hesitation. Langley glanced at Ethan as if to confirm. She is staying with me, Ethan said. My daughter and I. Our neighbor is a retired nurse. We can keep an eye on her. All right, Langley said. We will be in touch if we have questions. Outside, the sky had brightened to a dull silver. The air smelled of wet concrete and exhaust. Ethan helped Jenna into the SUV and folded the chair into the back. She stared straight ahead as he pulled out of the lot. They think I am making it up, she said. They think it is complicated, Ethan said. And they are not wrong about that, but complicated does not mean impossible. Her laugh was short. You really think there is a way to prove they did it? She asked. He merged onto the main road, hands steady on the wheel. I think people who plan things like this get arrogant, he said. They think weather and distance and their reputations will cover the rest. They get sloppy at the edges. That is where you catch them. She looked at him, trying to gauge whether he was just saying it to keep her from sinking. You sound like you know, she said. I spent 15 years listening to lies, he said. You get an ear for the wrong parts. When they got back to the house, Rosa intercepted them on the porch, a dish towel over her shoulder. Well, she asked. They filed first, Jenna said. Of course they did. Rosa's eyes flashed. Cowards, she muttered. Pretty well-dressed cowards. We are going to need help, Ethan said. He did not mean medical this time. He waited until Jenna had settled back on the couch, and Lily had been coaxed into her room with the promise of pizza later. Then he stepped onto the back porch with his phone and dialed a number he had not used in a while. The call rang twice. Reed Law Office, a voice answered. This is Marcus. You pick up your own phone now, Ethan asked. Budget cuts, Marcus said. Cole, that you... Yeah, Ethan said. I have a situation. There was a pause, then the tone on the other end shifted, sharpening. Talk to me, Marcus said. Ethan summarized. Hollow Creek Road, the wheelchair, the estate, the missing person report. He kept it tight, but there was no way to make the core sound simple. When he finished, Marcus whistled softly. That is not just a situation, he said. That is a lawsuit, a criminal case, and an ethics seminar wrapped into one. Police say it is her word against theirs, Ethan said. No cameras, no tracks. Storm did half their work for them, maybe Marcus said. But you said she is disabled, right? Dependent on their care after her father's death. Washington has some pretty strong statutes on vulnerable adults. If we can connect intent to financial motive, we are not just talking about family drama. Ethan could practically see Marcus pacing in his small office tie, loosened legal pad in hand. You free tonight? Ethan asked. For this I can be, Marcus said. Text me your address. I will bring takeout and a stack of case law. An hour later, he was sitting at Ethan's dining table with a carton of noodles, his suit jacket off, and sleeves rolled up. He listened to Jenna lay out the story again, asking the kinds of questions Ethan knew he would. When exactly did your father change his will? Marcus asked. Do you know? The lawyer said about 6 months before he died, Jenna said. I did not know he had changed anything until we sat in that office. Did your stepmother know? Marcus asked. I do not think so, Jenna said. If she did, she is a better actress than I thought. Marcus tapped his pen against the table. Vulnerable adult abuse covers more than just nursing homes, he said half to himself. If they were your primary caregivers and they tried to eliminate you for financial gain, that fits a lot of boxes. Police mentioned that proving attempted murder would be hard, Ethan said. Of course it will be, Marcus said, but we do not go straight at that. We build everything around it. Financial records, behavior changes, any prior statements. We look for patterns. We look for lies. Speaking of which, do you have access to your father's accounts? Jenna hesitated. Yes, she said. Some of them. The estate lawyer gave me login info for the main bank and the brokerage. He said I should start getting familiar with things. That lawyer might be my new favorite person, Marcus said. If you are up for it, we can pull some statements, see what they have been doing since the funeral. Ethan fetched his laptop. Jenna gave Marcus the necessary information. Soon the dining table was covered in printouts and scribbled notes. They started with the basics: transfers out of the estate account, payments to attorneys, utility bills. Nothing suspicious at first glance. What about their personal cards? Ethan asked. I do not have that, Jenna said. Only the estate stuff. Wait, Ethan said. When they took you on this trip, who paid for gas and hotel? Gas Chase, Jenna said. He always used his own card at the pump, then expensed it to my dad later. There was not a hotel. They said we would book in person. Ethan's brain latched onto the detail. If he planned to get reimbursed from the estate, any charges would land there, he said. We might have merchant codes locations. Marcus spun the laptop toward him. Show me, he said. They filtered the most recent activity for anything tagged with gas stations. A few in town, one on the interstate from earlier in the month. Then Ethan saw it. Hollow Creek Fuel in Delhi. The line item sat there in black text, dated the same day Jenna had been left on that road, time-stamped 3:41 p.m. His pulse kicked. Here, he said, jabbing a finger at the screen. That is not a freeway rest stop. Marcus leaned in. How sure are you? He asked. Hollow Creek Fuel in Delhi is on that back road, Ethan said. I have driven past it a handful of times. It is a shack with pumps, definitely not attached to an interstate bathroom complex. Jenna stared at the screen as if the letters might rearrange. That is the day, she said. The time, too. It was still light when they left me. By the time you found me, it was getting dark. Marcus grabbed a notepad. We need to know if they have cameras, he said. Ethan had his phone in his hand before Marcus finished the sentence. A quick search pulled up a listing and a number. The phone rang 3 times before a man answered, voice rough with either age or cigarettes. Hollow Creek Fuel, he said. Hi, Ethan said. My name is Ethan Cole. I am looking into a transaction that went through your station a few days ago, and I am hoping you can verify something for me. We do not give out customer info, the man said. If this is about a charge, talk to your bank. I am not asking for card numbers or names, Ethan said. I used to work insurance. I am trying to confirm whether your station keeps video of the pumps. There was a pause on the other end. Had a robbery 3 years back, the man said finally. Cops told me to get a system. So yeah, we have cameras, pumps, and inside. How long do you keep the footage? Ethan asked. Cloud keeps it for 90 days, the man said. Costs extra, but it is cheaper than getting robbed blind. Ethan felt something click into place like a safe tumbling to the right combination. If I needed a copy of video from a specific date and time, he said, what would that take? A subpoena, the man said, or a warrant. I do not hand footage to anyone who calls on the phone. That is fair, Ethan said. Thank you. You have been very helpful. He hung up and looked at Marcus and Jenna. They have cameras, he said, 90 days worth. Marcus sat back, eyes bright. Then we are not just digging in the dark anymore, he said. The room felt smaller around the laptop. Jenna leaned closer, her chair pressed against the edge of the table. Marcus tapped his pen against the notepad. The corner of his mouth pulled tight in focus. Ethan could hear the tick of the kitchen clock behind him, too loud for something so small. 90 days, Marcus said. That gives us a window. The transaction was 2 days ago. We are well within it. He flipped to a clean payment. I will draft a motion for a subpoena. First thing in the morning, he said. We will ask for any footage from the pumps between 3 and 4:30 on that date. If we can place their car on Hollow Creek Road at the time they swore they were at a freeway rest stop, that is a lie under oath. And if the cameras did not catch them, Jenna asked. They have a decent chance, Ethan said. It is a small station, fewer angles to cover. Guy said pumps and inside. Jenna stared at the line of text on the bank statement as if willing it to give up even more. Hollow Creek Fuel in Delhi, 3:41 p.m. For the record, Marcus said, this is the first time I have been happy to see a gas charge on a financial spreadsheet. He looked up. Do you mind if I loop in the police on this? He asked. If we get the footage, it will carry more weight if they are part of the chain from the start. Jenna hesitated, then nodded. They did not exactly jump to my side this morning, she said, but if this forces them to look again, fine. Marcus pulled out his phone. Then I am calling Sergeant Langley, he said. He seemed like the kind of guy who hates loose ends. Langley met them 3 days later in a small conference room at the station. The walls were blank except for a dry erase board. A portable monitor sat on the table connected to a battered desktop tower that hummed softly. Outside, rain streaked the narrow window, blurring the parking lot into watery shapes. Ethan watched droplets race each other down the glass and had the odd sense of being back on Hollow Creek Road. Marcus stood by the monitor. Ty loosened the subpoena folded in his pocket. Jenna's chair was positioned so she had an unobstructed view of the screen. Rosa sat in a corner, arms crossed, silent but present. Langley came in holding a cardboard box with a logo Ethan recognized from the gas station's website. He set it on the table and opened it. Inside was a labeled flash drive and a printed sheet with time codes. Owner was grumpy about it, Langley said, but he complied. Cameras cover all 4 pumps and the front of the store. He held up the drive. Let us see what we have. He slotted it into the tower. The monitor flickered, then filled with 4 grainy panels, each showing a different angle of the station. The timestamp in the corner read 14:55:03. Security footage, Marcus said. The one genre where nothing happens until it does. Langley clicked through the time options, skipping forward. Cars slid into the frame and out again. A pickup truck. A minivan. An older sedan. He advanced in 5-minute blocks. Stop, Ethan said. The timestamp read 15:39. Headlights cut across the top left panel, reflecting off wet concrete. A black SUV pulled into view, easing up to pump 3. It matched what Ethan remembered from that night. The angle of the hood, the shape of the headlights, the way the rain beaded on the paint. Is that their car? Langley asked. Yes, Jenna said. Her voice came out thin. That is Chase's. The driver's door opened. Chase stepped out into the drizzle hood of his sweatshirt up. He moved with the casual ease of someone who did this 100 times a month. He swiped a card, selected a grade, stuck the nozzle into the tank. Victoria stepped out of the passenger side a moment later. No umbrella. She jogged toward the store, one hand checking that her hair was still smooth. Langley leaned closer. Zoom on panel 2, Ethan says. Sam. Diad. Langley clicked. Victoria's figure grew larger, the picture fuzzier but still clear enough. Her face was visible when she glanced toward the pump eyes narrowed against the rain. She did not look distressed. She did not look like a woman who had misplaced her stepdaughter. The clock in the corner ticked. Timestamp, Marcus said quietly, 15:41. He flipped back through his notes. They told me at the rest area that she disappeared around 15:30, Langley said. Said they were there until at least 1600 searching. No way to be in both places, Ethan said. They watched a few more seconds. Chase finished pumping, replaced the nozzle, and tightened the gas cap. Victoria came back out of the store with a bottled drink in hand. They got in. The SUV pulled out a frame. Back it up, Ethan said. Play it from when they enter and watch the direction. Langley rewound to the moment the SUV first appeared. The station sat at a T intersection. Cars coming from Cedar Ridge approached from the north. Cars coming from the deeper forest and Hollow Creek Road approached from the south. The black SUV entered from the bottom of the frame from the south side. When it left, it turned toward the north, toward town. They were coming from Hollow Creek, Ethan said, not going to it. Jenna's hand moved to the little pendant at her throat, the one Lily had given her. Her fingers curled around it. They drove past the place where they left me, she said. They filled up 2 miles away, then went back to town to pretend to be frantic. Langley's jaw set. This is not nothing, he said. At the very least, it contradicts their sworn statement about their movements. That is perjury. And it backs up your claim about the road. He clicked the video off the screen, going black with a soft pop. I will need to run this by the prosecutor, he said. But this is the kind of thing that changes a case. Rosa spoke up for the first time. They planned it, she said. They planned it and they smiled for the cameras. That has to count for something. Langley nodded once. It counts, he said. The next week moved fast for something that had started so slowly. Detectives went back over Victoria and Chase's original statements with the footage in hand. They compared times, cross-checked cell phone pings, mapped out routes on large paper diagrams. The picture that emerged was messy and unflattering. Ethan watched it take shape in bits and pieces. A phone call from Marcus about an assistant prosecutor who no longer sounded skeptical. A brief update from Langley about conversations with the district attorney's office. 2 weeks after they watched the video, Langley stood in Ethan's doorway with a piece of paper that looked heavier than it should. We got warrants, he said, for both of them. Jenna was at the kitchen table, an open notebook in front of her. She closed it slowly. What does that mean? She asked. It means they will be arrested, Langley said. Formally. They will be arraigned on charges of attempted murder, vulnerable adult abuse, and a handful of related counts. Their lawyers will get involved. There will be bond hearings. And eventually, if the DA follows through, a trial. Jenna's fingers twitched against the tabletop. "Where are they now?" she asked. "At home last we checked," Langley said. "We are picking up Victoria at some charity event this afternoon. Chase is at his condo." The idea of them moving through the world like any other day made Ethan's stomach turn. "Can we watch?" Jenna asked, then shook her head. "That sounds awful. I know. I just need to know what actually happens." Langley's expression softened. "There will be enough eyes on them," he said. "News will get out. You do not need to be in the parking lot to prove this is real." It was real sooner than any of them expected. That evening, the same news channel that had aired Victoria's tearful appeal ran a new segment. The anchor's tone was different. Less hushed sympathy, more measured interest. "Developments tonight in the case of a missing Cedar Ridge woman," she said. "Police have arrested her stepmother and stepbrother on multiple charges, including attempted murder and abuse of a vulnerable adult." Footage rolled of Victoria being led out of a downtown hotel in handcuffs, her designer coat hanging open, a flash of shock on her face before she ducked her head. Another clip showed Chase in a gray t-shirt at his condo building, hands behind his back jaw tight. The photo of Jenna in the backyard appeared again on the screen. This time, the caption under her name read, "Victim alleged attempted murder plot." Rosa turned the volume down and looked at Jenna. "They cannot spin that," she said. Jenna's eyes were wide, fixed on the screen. The soundless image of Victoria's bowed head seemed to hold her gaze. "I thought I would feel satisfied," she said quietly. "I mostly feel tired." Ethan understood. The relief was there, but it threaded through layers of grief and strain. The next weeks blurred into an odd rhythm. There were meetings with Marcus going over Jenna's account again and again until the edges of it gleamed. There were visits with a victim advocate who helped Jenna understand the court process. There were trips to the courthouse to discuss accommodations for her chair access to witness rooms, the height of the witness stand. Between all of it, life tried to be normal. Lily went to school, did homework at the kitchen table, practiced scales on the piano. Ethan picked up small consulting jobs and answered emails at odd hours. Jenna started making lists in her notebook of things to fix around the house, as if putting order into the wood and paint might balance the disorder elsewhere. One afternoon, as rain tapped lightly on the windows, Marcus spread a series of documents across Ethan's dining table. "Arraignment is done," he said. "They pled not guilty, of course. Their lawyers tried to argue that any inconsistencies in their timeline were due to trauma and confusion. The judge was not impressed. Bail is high and conditions are strict." "What now?" Jenna asked. "Discovery," Marcus said. "We exchange evidence. We see what they plan to argue. Right now, their main angle is that you are unstable, that you misinterpreted events, that you might have rolled yourself somewhere because you were overwhelmed." Jenna snorted softly. "Rolled myself down a highway," she said. "Creative." "They will also lean on their public image," Marcus said. "Charity work, business connections. They will try to make 12 strangers in a jury box see you as a liability. They had saint-like patience with not a person they tried to erase." "What do we lean on?" Ethan asked. "Truth," Marcus said. "And the fact that while stories can be polished, timestamps cannot." He tapped the printout of the gas station footage log. "This footage is our spine," he said. "Everything else hangs off it. Their financial records, their comments to neighbors, the way they talked at the hospital, your history with your father. We are going to build a picture that makes it very hard for them to claim coincidence." The trial date came faster than anyone expected, crowded onto a docket already full of smaller, quieter cases. They were given a courtroom on the second floor heavy with wood and formality. On the morning it began, the sky over Cedar Ridge was clear. No rain. The sun made the courthouse steps shine. Ethan walked beside Jenna as she rolled up the ramp. Her hands were steady on the wheels. Lily walked on Jenna's other side, clutching a small bag of snacks and a spiral notebook like a talisman. Rosa trailed behind, carrying a thermos of tea. Inside, the air smelled of polished wood and coffee. Voices echoed in the hall, low and tense. A bailiff checked their names against a list and held the door. The courtroom spread out in front of them, rows of benches, the judge's bench elevated at the far end. Reporters clustered at the back, their cameras discreet but present. The jury box sat empty for the moment, waiting. Across the aisle at the defense table, Victoria and Chase sat in neat clothes, hair smooth, faces composed. For a second, Jenna's hands tightened on her wheels. Then she rolled forward, spine straight, and took her place at the table with Marcus. Ethan slid into the front row behind them. Lily sat at his side. His keys rested in his pocket, warm from his hand. The clerk called the case. Voices stilled. The judge took her seat, black robes settling around her. "All rise," the bailiff said. The room rustled with movement as everyone stood. When the judge settled, the benches creaked back into silence. You may be seated, she said. Chairs scraped softly. Jenna felt the vibration through the floor up into her wheels. Marcus leaned closer. Just breathe, he murmured. One thing at a time. At the prosecution table, an assistant district attorney stood. She was compact with a blunt haircut and a stack of color-coded folders. Ethan had met her once in a crowded conference room. Her name was Erin Blake. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Blake began turning to face the box. You are going to hear about a woman who lost her father and nearly lost her life. You are going to hear about a stepmother and stepbrother who saw a daughter in a wheelchair, not as family, but as an obstacle. Her voice was calm, not theatrical, the kind that pulled people in without raising itself. You will hear them talk about love, Blake said, about confusion, about timelines that are hard to remember when you are grieving. Then you will see video that does not forget. You will see bank records that do not feel. You will hear from neighbors and nurses, and a woman who sat in the rain on an empty road, waiting to die. She let that hang for a heartbeat. At the end of this trial, she said, we will ask you to return a verdict of guilty, not because of sympathy, but because the evidence leaves you with only one reasonable conclusion. She sat down. At the defense table, Victoria's attorney rose. He was tall, immaculate, with a tie so perfectly knotted, it looked drawn. Good morning, he said. My clients Victoria and Chase Hale are here because they loved someone who was struggling. His eyes moved over the jurors. Grief makes people act in ways they never expected, he said. Memories blur. Times get confused. When someone you care about disappears, you do everything you can to find them. You cry on television if that is what it takes to get help. He gestured lightly toward the table where Jenna sat. Ms. Brooks has been through a terrible ordeal, he said. We do not dispute that. But you will see that her recollection is colored by trauma. You will hear that she has a long history of medical issues and emotional strain, that she misunderstood, that she filled gaps in memory with fear. We will show you that my clients made mistakes in the chaos of a crisis. Mistakes are not crimes. Confusion is not conspiracy. He spread his hands. At the end, we will ask you to remember that, he said, and to find Victoria and Chase Hale not guilty. He sat. Jenna stared at the polished surface of the table. Her thumb rubbed the edge of her pendant, the tiny piano key Lily had given her. It was smooth from the last few weeks. Remember, Marcus said, voice low, their job is to make you doubt yourself. Ours is to keep bringing it back to what we can prove. The state called its first witnesses, a patrol officer to confirm the missing person report, a technician to lay the foundation for the gas station video. It was like watching someone build a frame board by board. Then Blake said, the state calls Sergeant Langley. Langley took the stand hand on the Bible oath spoken in the same steady tone he used in the station. Blake walked him through his role, the report, the interview with Victoria and Chase, their description of the rest stop, their claimed timeline. And did you later obtain security footage from a gas station on Hollow Creek Road? Blake asked. Yes, Langley said. Your Honor, the state moves to admit Exhibit 12, Blake said. Security footage from Hollow Creek Fuel and Deli, time-stamped October 14th. The judge glanced at the defense table. The attorney rose. No objection to authenticity, he said. We reserve argument for weight. Admitted, the judge said. The lights dimmed slightly as a screen lowered on one wall. The jurors shifted eyes, turning toward it. Blake nodded to the tech at the cart. Sergeant, she said, I am going to play a portion of the video and ask you to describe what we are seeing. The footage began. The 4 panels flickered into view. Rain streaks. Empty pumps. Then the black SUV eased into frame. Langley narrated for the jury. That is the vehicle registered to Chase Hale, he said, pulling into pump 3. They watched Chase get out, swipe his card, start the pump. They watched Victoria go inside, then return with a bottle. And the timestamp, Blake asked. 15:41, Langley said. 3:41 in the afternoon. Blake stepped closer to the jury box. You heard earlier that the defendants told police Ms. Brooks disappeared around 3:30 at a rest area on the interstate, she said. Sergeant, is it possible for this vehicle to be at a rest area on Interstate 5 at the same time it appears on this video? No, Langley said. The rest area they described is approximately 49 miles away. With normal driving conditions, it would take at least 45 minutes to travel between them. Blake nodded to the tech. Pause, she said. Rewind 10 seconds. Play all 4 angles. The footage rolled back. The SUV entered again, this time with more context. The road approach was clear. It came from the south, the direction of Hollow Creek Road. Sergeant Blake said, what direction is this vehicle coming from when it enters? From the south, he said. And when it leaves, it turns north toward Cedar Ridge, he answered. So, at 3:41 that afternoon, Blake said the defendants were driving away from the area where Ms. Brooks was later found, not toward it. Yes, Langley said. A small murmur ran through the gallery. The judge tapped her pen once on the bench, and the sound died. On cross-examination, the defense attorney tried to soften the edges. Sergeant, he said you would agree that in a crisis, people do not always remember times exactly. That can happen, Langley said. And Hollow Creek Fuel is not technically on Hollow Creek Road, correct? The attorney asked. It is at an intersection. It is at the intersection, Langley said. The only road that comes from the south there is Hollow Creek Road. So, it is possible they were lost, the attorney suggested, confused, driving back and forth looking for Ms. Brooks, that they stopped for gas while searching. It is possible to get lost anywhere, Langley said. However, their original statement was that they never left the interstate before she disappeared. This video contradicts that clearly. The next witnesses came in sequence. Mrs. Nguyen, in her Sunday dress, hands folded around a purse. She told the jury about hearing Victoria's voice through the thin hedge weeks before, about the phrase that had stuck in her mind. She said, "She is bleeding us dry," Mrs. Nguyen recalled. "I remember because it sounded so hard, and this was right after the funeral." The defense tried to frame it as a comment on grief expenses. Mrs. Nguyen shook her head. "She said it when they were talking about Jenna's care," she said, "not flowers." A nurse from the hospital took the stand. He recounted Chase's question in the hallway. He asked about facility costs, the nurse said, specifically what the cheapest options were for long-term care for someone disabled. The defense attorney smiled thinly. "People ask about costs all the time in hospitals," he said. "You would not say that means they plan harm." "Not on its own," the nurse said, "but his stepfather was still in critical condition. Most families I see are not price shopping in that moment." The state built the picture piece by piece. Finally, Blake said, "The state calls Jenna Brooks." The room shifted, heads turned. Jenna rolled forward. The bailiff held the Bible where she could reach it. Her hand, smaller than Ethan remembered from that night in the rain, rested on the worn cover. "Do you swear to tell the truth? The whole truth and nothing but the truth?" "I do," she said. She maneuvered her chair to the side of the witness stand. The judge had agreed that climbing onto the raised seat was not necessary. From this angle, the jury could see her face clearly. Blake approached with no notes in her hands. "Ms. Brooks," she said, "how old are you?" 23, Jenna said. "And how long have you used a wheelchair?" Blake asked. 8 years, Jenna replied, "since I was 15. Blake did not ask for details about the accident. That part had been covered in pre-trial motions and reports. Instead, she moved to the heart of it. "Can you tell the jury about your relationship with your father?" she asked. "He was my person," Jenna said simply. "He worked a lot, but when it mattered he was there, in hospitals, at appointments, at home when ramps needed building." Her voice did not shake on the word father. It wobbled when she said ramps. After his death, Blake said gently, "Who was responsible for your day-to-day care?" "Legally," Victoria, Jenna said, "my stepmother. In practice, it was a mix of her and Chase. They managed my schedule, my rides to physical therapy, access to money. The will put most of the estate in my name, but they had control over a lot of the logistics." "Did you have any reason to believe they would hurt you physically before the trip to the lodge?" Blake asked. "Not until that day," Jenna said. "Before that, it was all pressure and comments. Nothing you could call the police about." "Tell us about that day," Blake said. "Start from when you left the house." So, she did again. The SUV, the fog, the wrong exits, the way the trees changed. She described the feel of the air on Hollow Creek Road, the smell of wet pine, the texture of the guardrail under her fingers when she reached back for it. She spoke quietly, but there was a steadiness in it that had not been there in the station. When they wheeled you to the edge of the road, Blake asked, "What did you believe was going to happen?" "I thought they were going to look at the engine," Jenna said. "That it was just a regular stop. My dad and I had stopped 1,000 times like that, gas or snacks or bathroom. Sometimes I stayed in the car, sometimes I got some air. It felt familiar, right until it did not." "What changed?" Blake asked. "They let go," Jenna said. Her hand went to the pendant again, almost without her noticing. "I heard the car doors," she said. "I heard the engine. When I looked up, they were inside, not under the hood." Blake took a step back, letting the jurors take that in. "What did you do?" she asked. "I called out," Jenna said. "I said, 'Wait, you forgot me.' I said it maybe 3 times. My voice is not that loud on a good day. With the rain, it sounded small." "Did either of them respond?" Blake asked. She met the jury's eyes. "Chase looked in the rearview mirror," she said. "Our eyes met. I know he saw me. Then he looked away and kept driving." "What went through your mind then?" Blake asked. Jenna exhaled. "At first I thought this was some extreme messed up test," she said. that they wanted to see what I would do, that they would come back laughing and say it was an exercise in independence. I have heard people talk that way about pushing disabled folks past their comfort zone. She shook her head slightly. But when the taillights disappeared, she said I realized they were not coming back. She told them about the hours, about counting cars, about the way the rain soaked into her clothes, then into her skin, about talking out loud just to hear a human voice. "What did you think was going to happen to you out there?" Blake asked quietly. "I thought I was going to die," Jenna said. "I could not move. I could not get off the road. I knew I was already making their lives expensive and that storms wash things away." Her voice did not crack on that last line. It landed as a fact like describing gravity. "Is there any doubt in your mind that they left you there on purpose?" Blake asked. "None," Jenna said. On cross, the defense attorney shifted his stance softer, like he was addressing a fragile witness. "Ms. Brooks," he said, "you have been through a tremendous amount of loss in a very short time. Would you agree with that?" "Yes," she said. "You have also, by your own account, had years of intense medical treatment therapy, and what I imagine were some very hard days emotionally," he said. "Yes," she said again. "Would you also agree that grief can change how we remember things?" he pressed. "Make us see actions in a harsher light than they were intended." "I know grief makes things foggy," Jenna said. "That is why I have been careful about what I say happened and how I say it." He nodded as if he appreciated her precision. "On Hollow Creek Road," he said, "is it possible you misread a moment of panic as intent? That perhaps they thought you were safe by the road while they looked for help?" She looked at him with a kind of tired patience. "I have been in a wheelchair a long time," she said. "I know what safe looks like. It is ramps and handrails, and someone saying, 'Wait here while I get help.' It is not a narrow shoulder a drop and a car leaving without a word." He tried another angle. "You did not see them discuss harming you," he said. "You did not hear them say, 'We are going to leave Jenna here to die.'" "No," she said. "People who plan things like that do not make speeches." "So, your conclusion about their intent," he said, "comes from your interpretation of their actions." "It comes from being there," she said, "from the pattern of what they said before and what they did when they thought no one would be watching. From the fact that I am alive because a stranger chose to stop, not because they ever came back." He hesitated just for a second, then nodded and said he had no further questions. Ethan took the stand after her. He described the rain, the shape in his headlights, the way Jenna's hair had stuck to her cheeks, the color of her lips, the tremor in her body. He spoke in the same matter-of-fact tone he had used in 100 claim briefings. The jurors watched him with the attention people gave to someone who did not seem interested in anything but the facts. "Based on your experience investigating accidents," Blake asked, "did what you saw on that road look like an accident to you?" "No," he said. "Accidents leave chaos. Things scattered marks on the road debris. This felt placed. Her chair was on that narrow strip of shoulder angled toward the drop. No skid marks, no broken glass, no other vehicle in sight." He told them about the way Jenna had grabbed his wrist when he reached for his phone, about the names she had given through chattering teeth. On cross, the defense attorney implied that Ethan's position as Jenna's current host made him biased. "You have allowed Ms. Brooks to live in your home for several weeks," he said. "You have developed a bond, would you say?" "Yes," Ethan said easily. "She is important to my family." "Could that relationship influence how you see the defendants?" the attorney asked. "It could," Ethan said. "That is why I keep bringing it back to what I know how to read. Time stamps, weather, terrain. Their story says freeway rest stop. The evidence says Hollow Creek fuel and deli. When closing arguments came, the day had stretched long. Outside clouds were piling again at the horizon." Blake stood before the jury one last time. "You have heard words," she said, "a lot of them. From the defendants in their statements, from Ms. Brooks, from officers and nurses and neighbors. Words can be slippery. That is why we showed you things that do not slip." She pointed toward the darkened screen. "You saw their vehicle 2 miles from where she was left at the exact time they claimed to be, somewhere else," she said. "You saw the direction they were coming from and the direction they went. You heard how they spoke about her care, about costs, about facilities when they thought no one was listening. You heard from a woman who knows the difference between fear and fantasy." She rested her hands on the rail of the jury box. "At the end of the day," she said, "you have to answer a simple question. Do you believe that 2 people who had motive, opportunity, and a plan just happened to be on the wrong road at the wrong time? Or do you believe the woman who sat alone in the rain until a stranger pulled over?" The defense framed it as a tragic misunderstanding, a tangle of grief and miscommunication. They asked the jury not to criminalize bad judgment. Then the case was in 12 pairs of hands. The jury filed out. The room exhaled. Time in the courtroom shifted into a strange liquid state. Minutes stretched and snapped. The wall clock ticked. Papers rustled. Someone coughed. The judge left the bench and returned. People whispered in the gallery, subdued. Jenna sat very still, eyes on a point somewhere in the middle distance. "How long does this usually take?" she asked Marcus. "There is no usually," he said. "They will take the time they need." It turned out to be 3 hours. When the bailiff finally opened the side door and the jurors filed back in, faces carefully blank, Ethan felt his heart drum against his ribs. Lily's hand found his and held hard. Everyone rose when the judge returned, sat when she told them to. "Madam Foreperson," the judge said, "has the jury reached a verdict?" A woman in the front row of the box stood, a folded set of papers in her hand. "We have," she said. The clerk took the papers, passed them up. The judge read them silently first, her face giving away nothing. Then she nodded. In the matter of the state of Washington versus Victoria Hale, the clerk read on the charge of attempted murder. "In the first degree, how do you find?" "Guilty," the foreperson said. "And on the charge of abuse of a vulnerable adult?" "Guilty." The words landed with the soft finality of a door latching. In the matter of the state of Washington versus Chase Hale, the clerk went on the charge of attempted murder. "In the first degree, how do you find?" "Guilty," the foreperson repeated. "And on the charge of abuse of a vulnerable adult?" "Guilty." Additional counts followed: fraud, conspiracy. Each time the same answer. Victoria's shoulders sagged, the composure slipping for the first time. Chase stared straight ahead, jaw grinding. Beside the counsel table, Jenna's hand flew to her mouth. Her shoulders shook once, a silent sob escaping before she could stop it. Ethan did not think. He put his hand on the back of her chair, solid and warm. The judge thanked the jury, spoke of sentencing to come, of pre-sentence reports and dates. Her words washed over the room like a low tide. As the bailiff moved toward the defense table to take Victoria and Chase into custody, Chase turned his head. His eyes found Ethan. There was no plea there, no confusion, just a hard, concentrated hatred. Ethan held his gaze unflinching until the bailiff touched Chase's elbow and guided him toward the side door. The heavy door closed behind them with a dull final sound. Jenna let out a breath that seemed to leave her empty. For the first time since Hollow Creek Road, she allowed her weight to lean fully into the chair as if she could trust it to hold her. Outside the courthouse, the air felt different, cooler, cleaner. The sky had shifted to a pale-washed blue. A breeze carried the smell of wet stone and exhaust. The steps were crowded. Reporters clustered near the bottom, cameras and microphones poised. A rope line and 2 security guards kept them from swarming the doors. "Ms. Brooks, can we get a statement?" Someone called. "Jenna, how do you feel about the verdict?" Jenna blinked in the sudden bright. Her hands found the rims of her wheels automatically, but for a second she did not move. "I am taking her to the car," Ethan said. He angled her chair away from the cluster of cameras. Rosa and Lily flanked them like a small moving wall. Marcus walked just ahead, a thin barrier and a loosened tie. "Jenna, 1 word, please," another voice called. She kept her eyes on the parking lot. At the edge of the steps where the concrete sloped into a ramp, her breath hitched. It sounded like something tearing. Ethan stopped. Jenna covered her face with her hands. The sound came again, a harsh sob she had been holding back through every question, every verdict. Her shoulders shook, small and violent. He dropped to one knee beside the chair. The stone was cold under his jeans. "I have got you," he said quietly. She did not say anything. She did not have to. Her hand slid down just enough for him to see her eyes. They were flooded, but there was something else there too. Release. Empty space where a constant fear had sat. Rosa hovered to the side, eyes wet. Lily stood with both hands gripping her backpack straps, jaw set, as if determined not to cry until Jenna could not see. Marcus positioned himself so their little circle had a bit of privacy from the long lenses. "Let them have their pictures," he muttered. "This is real life. They can figure out the captions later." When Jenna's breathing finally slowed, she wiped at her cheeks with the sleeve of the cardigan she wore. "Sorry," she said, a raw whisper. "Do not be," Ethan said. He pushed her toward the car, each turn of the wheels gentle. The cameras kept their distance, shouted a few more questions, then shifted their focus as some new angle presented itself on the courthouse steps. The weeks that followed were quieter on the surface and stranger underneath. Sentencing came a month later. The courtroom was less crowded. The verdict had been the headline. This was the fine print. The judge spoke of trust broken and vulnerability exploited. 15 years in prison for each of them to be served in separate facilities. Restitution to Jenna. No contact orders that stretched past their release. Ethan listened to the words without letting them stick. He watched Jenna instead. She sat straighter than the first time she had rolled into that room. Her hands stayed loose on the wheels. Afterward, she did not cry. She did not smile either. She stepped out of the building in her chair, looked up at the sky, and took a long breath. "It is over," she said, "at least this part." Back at Ethan's house, life settled into a new pattern. The ramps that had started as sketches in his head became lumber on his lawn, then sturdy structures at the front and back doors. Jenna insisted on paying for them. So, he let her, though he found himself sanding the railings longer than necessary, as if smoothing edges might make the change sink in. "Your father would have liked these," Ethan said one afternoon, tightening a bracket. "He would have corrected your measurements," Jenna said, smiling, "then made us lemonade afterward." Inside doorways widened. A contractor hauled away an old tub and installed a roll-in shower. The first time Jenna wheeled in and turned with ease, she laughed out loud, bright and short. "Feels like cheating," she said. "I am used to counting every inch." "You are allowed to have an easy turn sometimes," Ethan replied. Her father's lawyer helped finalize the transfer of the house and assets. Papers were signed. Numbers moved from one column to another. Underneath it, something shifted for Jenna. She sat at the dining table one night, a state binder open in front of her. "I am supposed to have this," she said, tapping a line on a printout. "You are," Ethan said. "It still feels strange," she admitted, "like I am carrying something that belongs to someone else." He watched her eyes move over the columns. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "That I do not want all of this to vanish into investments and renovations," she said. "That there are other people who had worse versions of what I went through and no one stopped for them." That was the first time she said the name out loud. "Crossroads," she said, "for the project, for the non-profit. Not just because of that road, but because that is where people end up when they have to choose what kind of family they are going to be." Marcus loved the name. Within weeks, Crossroads Project had letterhead, a provisional board, a basic website. Jenna became its director on paper. In practice, it was a laptop at the dining table, a folder of intake forms, and a notebook full of ideas. Ethan watched her work. She spoke with a woman whose sister controlled her disability checks, a man whose guardianship had been twisted into a trap. She listened more than she talked, made lists, circled patterns. Marcus handled the legal threads. Ethan took on the investigative ones. He was good with records, with timelines, with seeing what did not line up. It felt odd after years of working for an insurance company to use that skill on behalf of people instead of balance sheets. Lily adapted faster than either of them. She started bringing her homework to the dining table when Jenna worked there. Jenna quizzed her on history dates and science vocabulary, turning definitions into stories. At the piano, Lily played pieces with more feeling. Jenna would close her eyes and listen, then offer small notes. "Pretend the left hand is the rein," she said one day, sitting near the piano with a mug of tea. "Soft, steady. The right hand is the headlights. Short, bright, a little surprising." Lily tried it. The music shifted. Ethan listened from the doorway, hand on the frame. Later that night, as he tucked Lily's blanket around her, she looked up at him. "She feels like a mom," Lily said. The words landed gently and hard at the same time. "Not like Mom," she added quickly. "That is different, but kind of like if I got a bonus one." He smiled, something tight and old in his chest easing. "I think she feels pretty lucky to have you too," he said. Rosa noticed changes before Ethan admitted them to himself. "You smile more," she said one afternoon, leaning on the fence between their yards while he picked up stray scraps of lumber. "I smile plenty," he said. "Not like before," she replied. "It is in your eyes again. And you argue about cabinet handles with someone who actually argues back." He shook his head, but he did not deny it. The shifts between him and Jenna were small at first. The way her hand brushed his when they moved a box together. The way he knew how she took her coffee without asking. The way they paused in the kitchen, sometimes close enough to feel each other's breath, and then stepped away before the moment could mean something. One rainy evening, Lily was at a friend's house and Rosa had gone to a book club. The house was unusually quiet. Ethan found Jenna in the kitchen sitting by the window. A pot of something thick and tomato-based simmered on the stove. The whole room smelled like basil and garlic. "You cooked," he said. "I followed a recipe on the back of a can," she said. "Do not get too excited." He leaned against the counter. "I am still impressed," he said. "You figured out which cabinet actually has the pots. That took me a year." She laughed, a sound that seemed to relax the air between them. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course," he said. "Are you happy?" she asked. "Here, with all of this. With me taking over your guest room and your dining table and your life." He studied her face the way she tried to keep her tone light. "Yes," he said. It surprised him how easy the word was. "Are you—" She looked down at her hands for a moment, then back up. "This is the first place I have felt like I am not temporary since my father died," she said. So, yes, I am happy. Scared I will wake up and it will be gone, but happy. He pushed away from the counter and came closer slow enough she could see him do it. I do not want you to feel like you owe us anything, he said, or like you have to stay until some invisible debt is paid. She held his gaze. Do you want me to stay? She asked. Yes, he said again. His voice came out lower this time. I like you here. So does Lily. So does Rosa, although she will say she only comes for the free coffee. Her eyes shone not from tears, but from something warmer. I like being here, she said, with both of you. This is the life I thought I would have with my dad, just shaped differently. The simmering pot burbled, sending up a fresh wave of scent. The clock over the stove ticked. Rain tapped the window in a steady rhythm. There was a pause, not empty but full. Jenna, he said, I have been trying to figure out if it is wrong to want more than this. You have been through so much. I do not want you to feel pressured or cornered. Her mouth tilted. I know what pressure feels like, she said. This is not that. He took a breath. I care about you, he said. Not just as someone I helped, as you. The way you fill this house, the way you talk to Lily, the way you make me want to be better at everything. She let the words hang there, testing them in the space between them. I care about you too, she said. For a while I thought it was just because you saved me, that it was some kind of emergency bond. But it did not go away when the sirens did. His chest felt tight and light at the same time. Can I kiss you? He asked. Her answer was immediate. Yes, she said. Please. He leaned in, giving her time to change her mind. She did not. Their foreheads touched, then their noses bumped gently, then his mouth found hers. The kiss was soft at first testing. Her hand came up to his wrist fingers, curling against his skin. The chair anchored them. The kitchen with its clutter and warmth and steam wrapped around them. When they pulled back, both of them had the dazed look of people who had just stepped out of a different weather system. I have wanted to do that for a while, he admitted. Good, she said. I would hate to think I was the only one imagining kissing the guy who rescued me in the rain. The front door opened with a quick rattle of keys. Lily's voice floated down the hall. Dad, I am home. Mrs. Ortega dropped me off. They sprang apart on instinct, then stopped themselves halfway. There was nothing to hide now, not really. Lily stepped into the kitchen and froze. Her eyes went from Ethan to Jenna, then to the way their hands were still almost touching on the counter. She rolled her eyes in a perfect preteen arc. Finally, she said, I thought I was going to have to start leaving notes like, by the way, you are in love. Jenna laughed, the sound turning bright and free. Your daughter is very observant, she said. Gets it from her mother, Ethan replied, saying it did not sting this time. It settled into the room like another true thing among many. Lily came forward and hugged them both, one arm around her father, one around Jenna's shoulders. So, she said, pulling back, eyes shining, does this mean you are staying forever? Jenna looked at Ethan. His answer was in his face in the way he reached for her hand without hesitation. If you will have me, Jenna said softly. Lily grinned. Good, she said. I am already used to you hogging the dining table. Summer settled over Cedar Ridge slowly. The rain did not disappear, it just warmed. It smelled less like cold metal and more like wet dirt and cut grass. The trees on the slopes above town deepened into a thick, calm green. Life in the Cole house shifted again this time, with an ease that surprised all three of them. There was still work and school and grocery lists, but now there were small things layered on top. A second toothbrush by the sink that matched Ethan's. An extra coffee mug that somehow always ended up near Jenna's hand. Lily rolling her eyes when she walked into the kitchen and found them leaning just a little too close over the same recipe book. Crossroads grew in its own uneven way. Some days it was just one call, one person on the other end of the line trying to untangle money and power and the word family. Other days the inbox filled faster than Jenna could answer. She paced herself, not with steps, but with questions. Is this mine to fix? Who else can I bring in? Sometimes the answer was Marcus with his legal pads. Sometimes it was Ethan with his spreadsheets. Sometimes it was just listening. On a warm evening in July, Ethan came home to the smell of soil and tomatoes instead of dinner. The back door was open. He stepped onto the porch and stopped. Jenna and Lily were in the small patch of yard they called a garden. Raised beds lined the fence full of herbs and a few stubborn flowers. Jenna's chair was parked between two tomato plants, her hands showing Lily how to tie the stems to the stakes without breaking them. Dirt streaked the back of Lily's hand. A smear of green marked Jenna's wrist where she had brushed against a leaf. The light caught them both soft and late, and for a moment Ethan just watched. The easy tilt of Jenna's head when she laughed. The way Lily's shoulders sat looser than they used to. The house behind them windows open piano quiet for once. Jenna looked up and spotted him, her face lit in that specific way it only seemed to when he was the one arriving. "Hey," she called. "You are just in time to see us abuse innocent plants." Lily snorted. "We are helping them stand up," she said. "That is not abuse." Ethan came down the steps, kissing the top of Jenna's head on his way past. Lily bumped his arm with her shoulder. "What were you thinking about?" Jenna asked, watching his face. He shrugged, aware of his own smile. "Just that I got lucky on a very bad road," he said. Her eyes softened. She reached over, fingers brushing his. Later, after Lily had gone inside to wash up and text someone about the state of her hands, the two of them sat on the back steps with cold glasses of water. The sky had shifted toward purple. Fireflies blinked at the far edge of the yard. Jenna's chair was pulled close front wheels, almost touching Ethan's knee. He rested his arm lightly along the back, a familiar weight now. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "That question is getting famous around here," he replied. "But yes. If you had not taken that exit," she said, "if the GPS had not rerouted, if the traffic had cleared, do you ever think about where you would be right now?" He watched a firefly rise and blink, then disappear. "Probably still stuck in that half-awake life," he said. "Going to work, cooking dinner, pretending that was enough." She looked at him, studying the lines at the corners of his eyes. "I am glad you missed your turn," she said. He reached into his pocket. His fingers closed around a small velvet box that had lived there all afternoon, heavier in his mind than in fabric. "Jenna," he said, "there is something I have been trying to find the right time for." Her brows lifted. "This sounds serious," she said. "It is," he said, "but in a good way." He slid off the step and onto the grass so they were at eye level. The ground was cool through his jeans. He opened his hand. The box sat in his palm, dark and simple. Her breath caught even before he flipped it open. The ring was not large. A thin band, a single stone that had belonged to his grandmother, polished but not perfect. Light caught in it softly. "I know we have already been through more in a year than some people do in a decade," he said. "I know neither of us got here the easy way. But when I look at you in this house, with Lily, with this life we are piecing together, it feels like something I do not want to risk losing to caution." Her hand covered her mouth. Her eyes were bright. "Jenna Brooks," he said, his voice steady, even though his heart was not. "Will you marry me? Not because I found you on that road, not because I helped you through court, but because of who you are in this world and who you are in mine." She exhaled a laugh that dissolved into a sob. "Yes," she said. "Of course, yes. There is no version of this life where I do not want that." His hands shook a little as he slid the ring onto her finger. It fit just right. He did not know if that was planning or luck. He did not care. When he stood, she gripped the front of his shirt and pulled him closer. The kiss tasted like salt and sunlight and herb leaves from the garden. Somewhere behind the screen door, a muffled squeal sounded. Lily appeared at the window, face pressed to the glass, grin so wide it almost hurt to look at. "You told her already," Jenna said, laughing through tears. "I asked for permission," he said. She took that job very seriously. The wedding took place 3 months later, on a clear afternoon in October, exactly 1 year after Ethan had hit the brakes on Hollow Creek Road. The backyard had been transformed by borrowed chairs and strings of lights. Rosa had bullied every neighbor who could bake into contributing. Crossroads, volunteers had helped hang fabric and tie ribbons. Jenna wore a dress the color of cream cut, so it flowed over her legs without tangling in the wheels. Small fabric flowers dotted her hair. When Ethan saw her at the top of the short ramp they had built as an aisle, his breath stopped. The rest of the yard faded to a kind of soft blur. Pastor Elaine Ward, who had met with them in her office with the overstuffed couch and shelves of mismatched books, stood under a simple arch of branches and autumn leaves. "We are here to celebrate a marriage," she said, "and the persistence of love in places no one expected to find it." Lily walked ahead of Jenna, scattering petals from a basket she had insisted was not too childish for a 13-year-old. Her dress matched some of the leaves on the ground, deep red and warm. She took her place at Jenna's side, hands trembling just a little as she adjusted the bouquet. Ethan met them halfway down the ramp. He took Jenna's hand, then Lily's, then guided them the rest of the way to the arch. They had written their own vows. Ethan went first. "A year ago today," he said, his voice carrying over the small gathering. "I left work late and got stuck in traffic. I was grumpy, tired, and thinking about nothing except not disappointing my daughter again. I took a road I did not plan to take. On that road, I found you on what might have been the worst day of your life." He looked at her, the memory flickering behind his eyes. "You already know the details," he said. "The rain, the chair, the storm. What I want you to know here is what came after. You brought laughter back into this house. You challenged me. You loved Lily like she was always yours. You built something that reaches beyond these walls. I promise to keep choosing this life with you on good days and on days that feel like Hollow Creek. I promise not to look away when things are hard and not to forget the road that brought us here." Jenna's hands shook as she unfolded her own notes. She did not look at them once she began. "Ethan," she said, "when you stopped your car on that road, I thought it was a mistake. I thought I was hallucinating headlights. I thought no one would come because the people who were supposed to take care of me had decided I was too much." Her gaze swept the yard, taking in the faces, then came back to him. "You did not know me," she said. "You could have decided it was none of your business. Instead, you picked me up out of the rain and carried me to a house that has become my home. You fought for me when my own family became strangers. You made room for me in your life and in your grief." Her voice thinned but did not break. "I promise to keep showing up for you," she said. "Not just as the girl in the wheelchair you rescued, but as your partner. I promise to laugh at your terrible jokes, to make sure you do not work yourself into the ground to listen when you forget how to say what hurts. And I promise to remember that even on hard days somewhere, there is a road we did not plan to take that led us to this." When Pastor Elaine pronounced them married, the small crowd erupted into claps and calls. Lily threw the rest of the petals into the air with abandon. Rosa wiped her eyes with a crumpled tissue and shouted something in Spanish that made a few people laugh through their own tears. The reception was simple: plates of food, a playlist Lily had spent far too much time perfecting, people who mattered standing in small circles, talking and laughing. Marcus gave a toast that mentioned subpoenas only once. He held up his glass. "To bad roads," he said, "to stubborn investigators, to brave women, to kids who see things before the adults do, to second chances." Later, as the sun slid down and the lights in the trees grew brighter by contrast, Ethan and Jenna slipped away to the edge of the yard. From there, they could see the whole scene. Lily dancing with Rosa to a song that was at least 20 years older than she was. Pastor Elaine talking with Mrs. Nguyen near the dessert table. Jenna's hand rested on his. Her ring caught a little bit of light every time she moved. "Happy?" he asked quietly. She tilted her head back against his shoulder, eyes on the strings of lights and the slice of early night above them. "Yes," she said, "very." Far from town, Hollow Creek Road wound its usual line through trees and fog. Trucks still rumbled past its curves. Rain still fell there, sometimes hard enough to erase tracks, sometimes soft enough to leave small puddles shining. In Cedar Ridge, in the small house with the ramps and the piano and the garden out back, the windows glowed. The sound of Lily's laughter floated into the yard. Inside, there were dishes to wash and cards to open and a few stray petals crushed into the floorboards. Ethan listened to the sounds of his home, the one he had not expected to have again in this shape. Jenna's fingers twined with his. The air smelled like rainwood and sugar and the faint familiar tang of coffee cooling on a forgotten table. For the first time in a very long time, the future did not feel like something to get through. It felt like a road he was already on with the right people beside him. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.